Let's focus on what's ahead of us. This is kind of a crazy one. LucifroN versus Kiljardi. I don't know if you heard me there, Voldemar. Kiljardi has never once beaten LucifroN. He's never even come close. Is this finally the time that he can change history?
It's a good question. Again, I must not lie here. I've been speaking a little bit with him, and he was definitely favoring getting into Puppy Paw because his track record there is not that extensive as far as I'm concerned. Whereas against LucifroN, all the odds are stacked against him. Though I will say Kiljardi has been improving a lot since the last month, and so there is a potential for him to take games off of LucifroN. Will he win this set, however? If I was a betting man, I am not 100% sure.
Well, looking at the draft, I've already got some things I'm not 100% sure on. The most notable one to me, Crackety, I don't know if you agree, is every time I see Kiljardi drafting the Ottomans. I know it's something he likes, but in the current meta, my brain screams why.
Yeah, Ottomans, I mean, they can work out in some situations. Like, it kind of depends on how the fights go, I feel like. If your Sipahi, like, all suddenly get evaporated, or if they're actually staying long enough in a fight in order to do good enough damage. If the first one is the case, then usually you just see Ottomans kind of flop after that. I think, like, fast castle with Ottomans is definitely still, like, a really viable style in many situations. Their fast Imperial still yields a lot of really big value with the amount of free units that you're getting there. The question is if you have that that necessary amount of breathing room against civilization like the Ayubids, which are just famous for being like probably the most tempo-heavy civilization in the game at the moment.
Yeah, it's fair to say we can't really count many civs, Voldemar, that have had success trying to outrush the Ayubids when it comes to tech. Like, it feels like every single time we watch Ayubids, the other side has to stop them reaching Castle Age.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the Ayubids versus the Ottomans, it's definitely a rough one for the Ottomans. But I've also paid attention to how he's been playing against these fast castle civs with the Ottomans. Kiljardi's Ottomans is honestly not the conventional Ottomans we've been seeing. He's good at actually pacing himself with them, keeping his temperament and not being too aggressive. And that just means that if he can get into a situation in this game where the game slows down and LucifroN's tempo is sort of slowed down as well, then it might be favorable for him. I think the longer the game goes, the better for the Ottomans, but the timing from the Ayubids is so strong. And LucifroN is not one who's going to miss those.
No, but I do love that you brought up Kiljardi's Ottomans and his focus usually more around Feudal Age, because I think one thing we've talked about Crackety is like Sipahi and Fury sound really OP, but they always feel too fragile and too risky to throw away unnecessarily in the early game. If I had to mark one player who doesn't seem to have that fear, I think it's Kiljardi.
Yeah, in the end, Sipahi, they're still horsemen, so they suffer from just being absolutely hard countered to oblivion by the spearmen. Like there are soft counters and there's hard counters. Horsemen and spearmen, that's an absolutely devastating hard counter relationship.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult situation. We just had some buffs to Horseman, and bless him, you know, I know people like Anatan are working their ass off to actually make sure that the buff feels justified, but I know a few people have felt that maybe a little bit of an extra tweak, maybe a little bit of someone extra, but when I hear people say they basically want Sipahi range, I do weirdly enough weep for Ottomans, which doesn't happen very often. But it's time to figure out whether we're going to be weeping for Ottomans in this game or weeping for Ayubids. We're going to be opening this best of 5 elimination series in Rocky River. Remember, this is it. There is no more forgiving. If you fall here, you fall eternal. You miss out on Red Bull Wololo El Reinado. The question mark is whether another former Wololo competitor will fail to make it, or if he can keep the dream alive. New Kid Kiljardi up against reigning GOAT from Spain, LucifroN. Game number 1. Let's get to.
All right, and there we go. Rocky River, that's going to be the name of the game here today, and Kiljardi starting us off with the classic, with the military school coming in first. LucifroN starts with House of Wisdom. Gonna have to wait and see a little bit to know which wing he decides to go for here. What are you thinking, Valdemar? I mean, in this matchup, would you go for the just reinforcement wing at the beginning, get the Desert Raider out? It kind of makes sense, I want to say, just to be able to like deal with the early spearmen if they come out without needing to really invest a lot into military units.
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like the military school is not necessarily a must in this matchup, but it can also be really good if you want to scale into a stronger feudal age push. We have to remember that the Desert Raider comes out a little bit later, so military wing reinforcement might not have the effect needed to deny enough earlier on. And so there might be value in those early spearmen. It's a good question, though, whether he will go for the reinforcement wing or not. Typically, you will if you want to go for the Castle Age play.
Yeah, that's gonna be the question here. LucifroN, typically when we see LucifroN play the Argubits, he doesn't really tend to go for the feudal age, extended feudal age kind of play. When he plays, he typically goes for like the normal castle age and just spamming camel lancers and into archers, camel lancers and archers, and just playing it that way, using his micro to as his main advantage, and just trying to kill a lot of the economy from his opponent that way. And then once the archers come in, that's when he goes for like the continued pressure in the military.
Absolutely, and that's also where I think these players, they have an interesting dynamic. It's probably why we've also seen LucifroN being so dominant against a player like Kiljardi historically. But we also, again, this mechanic thing, LucifroN obviously shines when it comes to the mechanics. So the question is really, what can Kiljardi do when it comes to his timings that he's so well known for? We might potentially see something like a feudal age timing, where Kiljardi brings back the classic Ottoman feudal style. But ultimately speaking, Castle Age might be the way that he needs to go, because the Ibid player will go there faster than he's able to mount up that feudal age pressure. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a question, right? Like sometimes Ottomans, they can feel kind of like explosive with how quick they're able to like mass up their military. It always depends on like they kind of go for that game plan that they then lock in. Is it going to be like feudal age mass archers with Sipahi, or is it going to be that fast castle age play with military schools? And yeah, it can be rough. It can be rough. Just because Ottomans as well, like they're not the strongest, right, in the current meta. They definitely are a little bit on the low. It feels like Ottomans right now, like they used to be in Delhi's position where they can just all in feudal age all the time. That's not really the case anymore. We're gonna have to wait and see just exactly how Kiljardi's gonna play us. I mean, we know him as like a very, very aggressive player. Looks like it is gonna be the reinforcement wing coming in from LucifroN. So I'm guessing that is literally just gonna be in order to buy himself a little bit of peace of mind on the gold mine, to be able to just go up to Castle Age without investing into military units before hitting Castle Age.
Yeah, I think that is the plan here. Kiljardi has obviously slowed himself down with this military school opener. Opting to go for this spearman here is where he needs to find some value. As long as LucifroN can defend against it, which he will be able to with the Desert Raider coming out in about 15 seconds here, then he's going to be absolutely fine going for a Castle Age timing. But the question is, what is Kiljardi's follow-up?
That's definitely gonna be a rough one. Feels like most follow-ups, just timing-wise, don't really come in at the correct timing. Desert Raider now is gonna make its appearance. Is gonna be able to buy LucifroN enough time to get that outpost up, enough safety for that at least. It's gonna have to micro back some of these weak villagers, but definitely gonna be able to do that. And now these spearmen are gonna be forced back here. And yeah, LucifroN gonna be able to safely just go up to the next stage. Granted, though, he does have a lot of villagers on wood. I'm not sure if he's going to invest into a second outpost, maybe an early production building, but typically when you go fast Castle Age, you should probably not have that many villagers on wood at this point in time and just focus more on your food and gold economy in order to get up as soon as possible.
Yeah, maybe LucifroN would opt to go for a little bit more of a feudal age play here, containing some of those early units that Kiljardi might opt for. But again, it's so hard to say at this stage. We see a stable, but essentially, how committed is he? And that is what these players are going to have to try to gauge from each other here in this early stage. Because if one misreads, and now there's a timing attack in the feudal age from Kiljardi, that's a big problem for LucifroN, because he might enter Castle Age, but he might not have any resources since they're being denied. And vice versa, if Kiljardi decides to go for a more of a Castle Age approach, LucifroN might just have the tempo that he needs to just deal with that super easily.
Yeah, now we're getting some early walls in from LucifroN. Definitely not something that we're used to seeing from him. Oh, and these walls are going through the fog of war. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to, like, if it's going to delete some of those wall segments when it comes to touching that gold mine there. It's gonna be a rough one. He's getting the stone in order to get some arrowslits and placement upgrades on those outposts. That's gonna buy him a little bit of time. At least it means that Kiljardi is gonna mandatorily have to go for a siege workshop if he really wants to get past those outposts. You can't realistically burn them just because of the House of Wisdom with the aura that it provides with the +5 torch armor there. Makes it very difficult for you to just torch through it.
And Kiljardi now getting the meta through the stable, I believe, and also producing a few Sipahi. Does look to go for these harassment force, but I'm not convinced that he's actually going to go for full aggression here. We see the walls trying to go up here, and the gold seems to be denying that the wall going up fully. It's one of these new bugs that have been introduced with the new patch, and so players are going to have to play around the goals when the walls won't connect properly.
Oh, Desert Raider, is he gonna get the villager? Looks like that villager did go down. Yeah, did go down, but Desert Raider got a little bit too close to the sun there. It's gonna lose its life. That wall is not fully finished. There's still a gap between the wall and the woodline there that Kiljardi, in theory, could enter through. I'm not even sure if that's necessarily a bug, because I read something about them changing the walling behavior so that you can't, like, scan resources by walling through the Fog of War. Not 100% sure just exactly what the intent behind that is, or if that's something that can be fine-tuned.
We'll have to leave that up for speculation for now. The villager that was creating that wall was taken down by the Sipahi, so one villager kill for both of these players, putting them equal villager count. None of them are going for this typical aggression play. We don't see any units coming out from either LucifroN or Kiljardi at an extended raid. We only see early units. And now we see the growth wing coming out from LucifroN. That's going to be that classical timing that we see with 7 villagers coming out. And the same for Kiljardi, opting for the Castle Age.
Great body block from LucifroN, able to keep that scout alive. Economic Green Growth is coming in. Made sure that he didn't deplete any of these berry bushes, so he's going to get an additional 600 food in terms of the berries there. That's going to be quite nice for him. Mehmet Imperial Armory now coming in for Kiljardi. So age up timing should be fairly similar. Kiljardi with 14 villager might actually reach age up a little bit ahead of time compared to LucifroN. And we do actually see the Imam Vizier point being used here by Kiljardi. So he's going to try and grab himself some very early relics there.
It's a classic move when you want to try to get the upper hand on the relic collection. To try to go for this Imam point, you initially delay your Vizier point, so that you don't go for the sheep or the meta. And then realistically, you're going to go for the imams, but you don't do them immediately to show your cards. Now, provided he did get up at a faster pace than LucifroN, which I would say is honestly rather impressive.
Triple stables coming out from LucifroN. That's going to be a lot of Camel Lancers that will be up on the menu. Behind that, Kiljardi is going for his own knights. First relic has been picked up. Second one is going to be on the way as well. There are still a couple of Desert Raiders out there, and Sacred Site isn't being touched, so no alert being sent over to LucifroN. And the Sipahi are going to be with the Imam, so even if the Desert Raider does find them, Sipahi are going to be able to win an engagement against the Desert Raider. Question is, does Kiljardi have enough? Okay, so he's now also adding in crossbows, but I think that's only through the military school. Might need to consider actively making an Archer Ancient adding some crossbows as well, because LucifroN, he's going absolutely ham when it comes to the Camel Lancer. 3 in the queue, 3 about to pop out, and immediately 3 more follow.
Yeah, it's Camel Lancers and potentially Archers later on. These Camel Lancers are going to force Kiljardi to play into a more slow composition with spears and potentially crossbows. I don't think the answer lies in the Knights, simply because the Camel Lancers will be countering that unit. And so if LucifroN wants Kiljardi to play slower so that it's easier for him to move around, that might be the key here.
So Kiljardi does want to stick to the offensive. He sends all of his knights forward. Could be dangerous because LucifroN just passed by with his own Camel Lancers. Might actually find that Imam there if he pays attention to it. Nope, just passing there. In the meantime, damage does get done over in LucifroN's base. A villager did just get taken down. Not too heavy losses though. And he is still ahead in the economy part due to that economic growth. And now the Camel Lancers make their way over to Kiljardi's economy. That's 1 village down, 2 village down. Make that 3. Heavy losses being taken there. Crossbowman is getting focused down. Wololo being called. Will get the unit, actually. Desert Raider will get converted there. Oh, the first Mangonel getting taken down. And LucifroN was getting some great value right there. Doesn't have any Pierce Arm upgrades, so the TC did do some significant damage to these Camel Lancers. It's going to be able to deter them for the time being. Good trades in the middle as well. Arguably not worth the villager losses, though, because LucifroN, he's now 11 villagers ahead.
Yeah, it's a substantial loss in villager count, and also losing this Mangonel is a lot of value. You're essentially getting a Mangonel every second minute with this Mehmet Imperial Armory, but losing the first one can be truly detrimental if you're trying to build up a good force, like we've talked about so many times during this cast here. Now, the idle villagers here are also going to be a big deal. It doesn't have that ranged armor just yet, but the Camel Lancer is finding that value anyways.
Yeah. Behind the stone, Kiljardi did manage to grab 4 relics, so that's going to be a good amount of gold income for him. 320 gold per minute compared to just 80 gold per minute for LucifroN. It's going to be a question, though, if it stays at just that 80 gold per minute, because LucifroN has started capturing sacred sites. If he's able to take map control, if he takes all 3 sacred sites, he's actually going to get more gold than Kiljardi is with the 4 relics.
Absolutely, but 4 relics is quite substantial. Kiljardi can take this many ways. He can opt to go for full aggression. He might actually need to do that in this situation, because if he decides to go for something like a second town center, suddenly it's a very different situation, and LucifroN is going to have a very free timing. So, ultimately speaking, the military schools provide enough units. That's the question here.
More villagers going down. That's another 3 that just went down there. 14 villager lead now for LucifroN. Make that 15. He's just been bleeding villagers there time and time again. Kiljardi now got his first couple of Janissaries in the queue, but LucifroN, he's able to make crossbows, and crossbows don't just deal well with the knights from Kiljardi, but also the Janissaries.
Definitely. The crossbows is a good all-around unit, having a high base damage. Now, LucifroN coming in with that second TC. Going to add a classic victory condition here, the economic one. Ultimately going to get more villages than he already has. So 36 villages from Kiljardi, up against 52 from LucifroN, and counting now with the second TC. That means that Kiljardi will have to do something in this game quite soon before he gets outscaled.
Yeah, at least he's going to find that TC that's going up. Able to kill a couple of villagers. Body block. Not quite able to block enough bodies there. Villagers do manage to survive. He's now going to have to struggle to get his military out of there. I think those units are probably destined to die now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he has to lose his cavalry here. I don't think he really found the value that he needed. You have to remember that second TC, if you lose a few vills, it's quickly going to replenish the villagers you might have lost. Now, with a loss like that, it might not be the biggest deal if your idea was to go into a melee and ranged infantry composition. We'll have to wait and see, though.
Kiljardi, he's floating a lot of wood right now. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing him just go into mass archers now at this point in time. LucifroN, in theory, he's got a lot of crossbows and some spearmen now. But it looks like instead Kiljardi is just going to opt into the second TC of his own now. He's gathering the stone for, and there it is, second TC. Coming in for him now, still stick on the stone. Question is that going to be for a third TC, or maybe he might work towards a key potentially? Because he does have the siege advantage with the free siege, right? Like 2 mangonels, if he starts pushing with that, then gets a forward keep in, could be quite good for him. But him floating so much wood kind of makes me think that maybe it's going to be even a third TC.
A third TC will definitely be a way to out-eco LucifroN, but I must say, like, we are in a situation where we have 4 relics already, and we have the military schools on top of that. So getting more units out, and just in general, having a balanced eco compared to your opponent, isn't actually going to be the issue. However, if he decides to go for that third TC and stays alive, then that's going to be pretty good for him. Remember, his spawn is actually quite strong, having both those 2 goals in the top and the 8k, that if he secures that and it's 3 TCs, he's going to be absolutely fine.
2 additional military schools have just been dropped by Kiljardi. He's up to 2 mangonels now. Honestly, wouldn't be like something that he could do in theory now that he's gotten all the military schools out, right? Like just get the Janissary drop in, try and go for the all-in. His opponent just invested into a second TC. But then again, he just invested in his own second TC. Actually, the third TC now gets
The
dropped
third
as
TC
well.
came through.
That's greedy. Did at least manage to decap Sacred Side, so passive gold income and passive unit production is in favor of him. Is it quite worth as much as 22 villagers? Maybe?
I'm not
Tough
sure.
to say.
I'm not sure. Like the third TC will be able to catch up on the villager losses that he has, but it will only be evened out before they pop cap anyways. The military schools, however, might be able to cover for this third TC. It's really tough because what are you gonna try to do on 2 TCs? You're gonna try to get to maybe Imperial Age and then you're opting for a better military school production. That is one way of doing this. The third TC, however, the thing is his base is so compact that getting a third town center is not really the biggest deal, actually. It's not like it instantly loses him the game because he might need to go somewhere else. Everything is right at his gate.
At Lancer in the front line with a single health remaining. He's a confident one. He's a confident. Wait, he did use his Vizier point. What did he use his Vizier point on? I see suddenly Kiljardi does have a lot of Janissaries. Did he actually go for the Janissary company one? He did. He did. He's going for the all-in-ish kind of play. At a point in time where Camel Lens suddenly greed his base.
So awkward, actually, because you're going to try to go for an attack at the same time that you're trying to outscale your opponent, where you're just trying to not get killed. You just want to not get moved out of this game, right?
Yeah, now the Springled means that LucifroN's going to be able to deal with the Mangonels, right? And Kiljardi, he can't really fight without his Mangonels. At this point in time, LucifroN's also got just mass Spearmen.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
I think
I mean,
it makes
it works
sense.
against the crossbows, right?
Yeah, ideally it should against Janissaries as well, because you're not taking bonus damage. But you got to remember that you're pushing with melee units. Going into a base like the Ottomans, where there's often a lot of buildings, the layout is actually going to determine whether or not those spearmen will be effective or not. The real deal is actually the siege, and Kiljardi has 3 mangonels and Springel's counting. So if he wants to go for a push here, LucifroN might be in trouble.
He's only making the Springles with the Mehmed Imperial Armory, though. He's not actively making them. It's going to take a while. LucifroN actively trying to capture all of these sacred sites behind this. I'm not sure who's exactly going to win this fight, just because LucifroN, he also added an archer, so he's got great tools at dealing with the crossbows and Janissaries now.
Absolutely, and now LucifroN's adding in more Springles. This is where Kiljardi might become a little bit too... We might see this greed now playing out for him as being a little bit too, what will you say, risky for him, because he doesn't have the anti-siege through his own Springles, and he might get outgunned here.
Yeah, that's the most important part, right? Like siege in this mid game, Springles just become so valuable, and not just against the siege of your opponent as well, but like having 2 Springles, because the Janissaries also take bonus damage. 2 Springles are pretty much able to kill a Janissary.
Yeah, we saw it before, where the siege in the Beastie Iobit versus Atri game was just so strong against these crossbows, and it might be the same thing that's going to play out here. You might have too many Springles compared to your opponent, but they still have value as sort of like long-ranged crossbows.
Kiljardi's still not actively producing these Springles, and that's probably what's really going to hurt him now in this next fight. The 30C may have actually been a little bit too much right there, and that's kind of thing, right? Like, Ottomans, they already have those tools with the... oh, actually, maybe he went a little bit too far ahead. Now the Springles come there as well. That's the thing, like, maybe like the 30C might have been too much just because the military schools already provide you with so much scaling value that he might have just invested a little bit too heavy into that economy there. Springles keep pushing forward, and that TC likely is gonna go down. Springle gets taken down. Mangonel, actually, the Springles are clumped up. If the Mangonels get good shots there on the Springles, if they do, okay, never mind, they don't.
They definitely don't here. The Springles are taking out the Mangonels, and now Kiljardi has no siege mass. And up against 2 Mangonels with Janissaries that take extra damage from these Mangonels, it's just not going to be it. I think Kiljardi is in trouble here.
Good shot gets connected there as well. So many Janissaries do go down. Yeah, this is absolutely rough. This is why you need this. Send another shot. Kiljardi. He's down to 20 military, and now he's got 4 Springles in the queue. But it's too late. It's simply too late.
It's the scary part of playing mass Janissaries. If you don't have the siege control, you don't have any front line. And so you're relying on the siege to sort of take out units before you can really get into a proper fight here with the Janissaries. And this is just such a rough position because the TC has gone down, the military schools are going down as well. This is such an awkward position for the Ottoman to have their production locked down like this.
Yeah, now more Springles are coming out. From Kiljardi might finally be able to have a way of forcing LucifroN out of his base. Kiljardi had the 30C for quite a while as well, but still wasn't able to push ahead economy-wise. Now also lost one of his military schools. Looks like the Moss is getting set on fire as well. No matter right now, no bonus attack speed. It's gonna be the Moss. That's gonna be a lot of idle time on those relics as well, and actually might be a heist now. As there are 2 dervishes there, just picking up the relics. 1 relic, 2 relics, and the heist is on. Relics getting picked up. LucifroN's making out like a bandit there.
That is more value than most players can really ask for. Getting those 2 relics, plus taking the military schools down, that is probably gonna be it for this push. I don't think there's much more value he could realistically get from this. If you look at LucifroN's bank as well, we're looking at a pretty sizable one compared to Kiljardi, who's behind with about 25 villagers, and on top of that, now only 1 relic.
Yeah, Kiljardi, he's now started investing into Spy, but that doesn't feel great considering that Ayubit Spearmen, they get the same bonus as the Abbasid. They do have that bonus range on them, and not just that, with the Mameluke's Bravery buff as well, as soon as they kill one of those Sapai, which definitely happens quite fast, suddenly the Spearmen also do more damage than following up against something like a Janissary or a Crossbow. They also get a little bit faster as well. It can, like, never underestimate that Mameluke's Bravery buff. It's actually quite massive on those individual units, and it can stack as well. Like, if a unit kills multiple units, they just get stronger and stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. The Ayubid army is such a high quality one. That's the same for the Ottomans, really. They have Janissaries, they have a Sipahi, they have the Metas buffing up their own units, so it is a matter of who actually has the most buffs here. On top of that, it's also a matter of who can make the most siege. Ayubids being able to make siege in the field, whereas Ottomans have got that extra production from the Mehmet armory. Take a look at the front here. We see a big push coming through again for LucifroN. He's got 6 Springles up against 4, and another one coming for Kiljardi. It's a tough one, right? Because you've got to be on point with your Springle micro. If you take a wrong fight where you can't reach, or you are sort of not quite there on the micro, you're not on point, you're in trouble, because if you lose the siege, you might lose military advantage. So LucifroN coming in with so many range units here, it could become problematic if he doesn't find the Springle connections, but he does.
All the Springles go down.
Yeah, all the Springles went down. The Mangonels too. 1 Mangonel remaining.
LucifroN didn't lose a single one.
Just on
He
point.
didn't
here.
lose a single one. Kiljardi suddenly has no siege remaining. Nothing. And once again, we're in that situation where Springles are killing the military. And LucifroN, he can just push it through.
LucifroN can opt to go for a complete lockdown here of the base. He's got the
He's
siege
aging up
advantage.
behind this now.
Yeah, he's getting the advancement wing as well, so he's going to get the roller shader triggers for his Springles as well as the upgrades on elite units now. And so ultimately his army will be so much stronger, but I don't think it really matters at this point. It's 100 eco versus 87. It's 65 military versus 14. He's in such a good position getting Imperial H2.
I feel like as soon as that Imperial Age hits, Kiljardi's probably going to wave the white flag.
I'm not sure.
No
We've seen
military
Kiljardi
rating.
again and again keeping in these games, so he might try to find a way out. It is a tournament after all, but in the end it's against LucifroN, so what can you realistically do in a situation like that?
Yeah, this is just rough, and now the H-up is gonna hit. Could this be it now for Kiljardi? Imperial Age comes in. No surrender yet, though, from Kiljardi, so might still have a plan here. Invests more and more into the Sipahi once again. Still have Abbasid Spearmen out on the field, though. It's going to be tough, because, sure, Sipahi are great. But they're not that great. They're not like Castle Age versus Imperial Age great.
The question is, do you realistically want Sipahi into full crossbow spear Gulam? I wouldn't
Definitely
say so.
not. Yeah, and now, I mean, Roller Shot Triggers is now in queue as well. Still 6 Springles remaining. And once that comes in, like, Kiljardi, he's remaking Springles, but realistically, he doesn't need to. Realistically, he's not going to win any Springle Wars now.
He's not going to win any Springle Wars. Once the roller shutter triggers come through, which they aren't yet, looking as he pull-ups here to Kiljardi's base again, is LucifroN. He's getting the roller shutter triggers. He just got Tithe Barns as well, and with 4 relics, that is so many added resources on top.
Wesley now getting dropped as well. Roll Shutter Triggers is now finished as well. Came very quickly with the plus 50% research speed that Golden Age Tier 2 provides. And now LucifroN, he's just going to run it in. Springles are just going to be able to kill the military as well. Mangonel shot comes in on the front line, but there we go. Springles with the range. There we go. Excellent micro coming in. 2 Springles at the same time. 3rd Springle now getting taken down as well. And that's the entire siege. Sipahi. It's a little bit late, though.
I'm not sure. He's still on 40 military here. Taking out a few Springles, that is going to matter quite a lot
More
here.
Sipahi.
Yeah, he's getting this around. It's not bad.
Grant, there's still a Golem tanking for the most part. Needs to get taken down. There we go. Now the Sipahi. Fortitude activated. But the reinforcement, that's once again a lot of Golems that need to be taken down.
We cannot underestimate how good these crossbows are with the meta. The meta unfortunately goes down here. But I would say, like, in the sense that this was already such an unfavorable position from Kiljardi, I don't really think he could have wished for a better engagement.
Yeah, able to take down the entire siege. I just wish the Sipahi flank came in a little bit earlier before he lost all of his own siege.
Yeah, it's a fair point, really. Like, you want to build up your own, but realistically, when you're up against an Imperial Age opponent, you got to get to the Imperial Age yourself before you can really contest the siege. When you have an upgrade like Roller Shutter Triggers, you're just never going to be able to do that. You require probably like more than twice as many Springles just to be able to contest that. But look at these fights. These archers are shredding through the crossbows, and the Mangonel from Kiljardi is also getting taken out by the elite Gulams. This is such a tough position to be in because you're just scrambling to try to build up an army, but you're being pushed all the time.
There it is. GG gets called. Kiljardi gonna give it over to LucifroN. So that's gonna be 1 point on the board here in this best of 5 for LucifroN. Can see the stats there at the end. LucifroN with the firm economic lead. They're able to get a couple of these great raids, and every now and then, just whenever Kiljardi went for an engagement on the front side, when he sent his army across, just 5 Camel Lances suddenly pulled back the entire military from Kiljardi. And yeah, this is that's a rough one. That's a rough one there for Kiljardi.
Pay attention to the resources collected here. It is a lot more for LucifroN. 20k food more for him, and that is enough to get to the Imperial Age and still produce way more than your opponent's going to be able to. Same with the eco count. You can see he's got that boost from the villagers and then added TCs on top. And Kiljardi, even though he went for that 3rd TC, he was not able to get the payoff in time, and that might also have been why he was not able to take this game, because it was too greedy.
Yeah, now it's time for us to take a look at our game number 2. Rocky River, won by the IU-Bits. Next one, it's going to be Holy Island, and it's going to be Juji's Legacy coming out from LucifroN against the English from Kiljardi. That's going to be an interesting one. Juji's Legacy on Holy Island, they are really, really strong, but English on the opposite side, also really, really strong, able to punish you on land, just pretty much for free if they do go for that early king, which does provide them with a lot of value there. And something that we've seen time and time again recently is that king, like, you get that king, you just make a couple of ships, and after that, you use that value that the king provides you with in order to go for Admiralty. Once you get that in, suddenly water you're gonna have a very, very big advantage on there with that bonus range when it comes to taking fights there.
Absolutely. And the thing we saw previously was also how players like Poppy Paw was able to come back with the Japanese on land. So what's going to be really interesting is to see, should one of these players lose the water, how are they able to come back? And I would say with both of these civilizations, there's quite a lot of comeback potential going into the late game here with multi-TC play, but I don't think it will get that far. LucifroN and Kiljardi are both very mechanically apt and very timing-oriented players, so should the game go that long? I don't think so.
Yeah, definitely should be a quick one. I mean, to be fair, like all water maps, you gotta add like an additional 5 minutes to them when it's like the full water maps, just because the build up it takes a little bit, like fishing ships and stuff like that. It takes a while to build that up. Overall, when it comes to like a civilization that I would favor, I think Juji's legacy, right? Like it's very similar on Holy Island than it was on Socotra. How resources can be very stacked or very clumped up together. So you can get some great meditation garden spots there. And these meditation garden spots, like when you get a lot of stone there, for example, they can really like dictate the game, how you play it, how you can like dock creep forward with more and more of these dock emplacements on them. Or even if your opponent tries to go for like aggression on land, you can get some outposts with emplacements on them and just be able to really buy yourself more than enough time that way as well. Juice Legacy is just so flexible overall. Same kind of goes for the English though. Like the English are also like one of the most flexible ones. Like they're kind of static when it comes to land play. On water, they can be really, really flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. Both these civilizations provide so much utility in both the early, mid, and late game. I would say, like, in the mid game, once the Admiralty upgrade has come through, there is a substantial power level difference on the water side of things. But again, I don't think LucifroN will allow it to go that far. We've seen these Spanish brothers coming on with the demo play, and they're just forcing that feudal age to really just be where the water's closed out, which is why I think either this game ends in the feudal age, or we potentially see a castle age where Kiljardi or LucifroN, for that matter, does not have water.
That's gonna be the question. Only a couple seconds separating us from our game number 2, and the question's gonna be: can LucifroN further build up that lead? Right now, it's 1-0 for him. Can he get to match point early on, or can Kiljardi get a point on the scoreboard as well? We'll see now, as we're diving right into our game number 2 now on Holy Island between Juji's Legacy and the English. And in typical fashion on Holy Island, villagers moving out early on in order to build those docks on the shoreline.
We do see the docks coming down here. The scouts go out to look for that deep sea fish, and we can see that both of the players have managed to put a dock close to the deep sea. What's going to be interesting here is how many ships they each decide to produce, because how many ships you create in the Dark Age is actually going to dictate how your timing is going to be in the Feudal Age. And for civs like English, you really want to get those timings through, because if you go for the Council Hall, you want the longbows to come out as quickly as possible to try to do damage. And if it's the King, you do have that 50-second timer. And so that added on top, if you get up to Feudal Age too late, the King might lose its value.
Exactly. I mean, King always is going to be able to get some value, even if you do get an outpost on the gold. The King, with the regeneration, is just able to duck and dive every now and then. Like, you go there, you cause some idle times, you go back again, you heal up, you go in again. But definitely not going to be able to get as much value as you would otherwise be able to. Something else to keep in mind, we do have these back woodlines here. What typically happens is that in these back woodline situations is that quicker than with the front woodlines, you're going to be in a position where UTC doesn't cover the woodline anymore. And then the King can just run in to those woodlines. And if you don't have a defensive building there in the woodlines, that can really cause a lot of idle time there. And you can't realistically afford on a water map to get idled off of wood for a long time. That can really put you in a bad spot.
Yeah, for sure. You need the wood to be able to sustain a good enough production on the water side of things. Again, it's a really good spawn for LucifroN here, not having that front wood line, as you mentioned. Longboat's going to have to travel all the way back, and that does mean that he's more vulnerable to these interceptions by either horsemen or archers. So, ultimately speaking, we are in a situation where this could become more favored for LucifroN when it comes to the land gameplay.
Indeed. A-drops are still gonna be a little bit further away. It does take a little bit extra on these water maps for players to do reach that point. It's talking a little bit about the civilizations. Maybe some viewers right now don't exactly know the exact like ins and out of these civilizations on water. So Ju's Legacy, they overall have a really good economy where they do have access to the imperial officials, which can supervise drop-off buildings where they then get 20% bonus resource from every drop-off. They can also collect taxes for gold. On that, they also produce ships a little bit faster. On the other hand side, we've got English, which don't really get any like direct economy bonuses. However, they do pay 10% less resource for all their ships. That includes the fishing ships as well. They also have some really good upgrades for their ships, starting in Feudal Age with Admiralty, where all their ships, military ships, get +1 range. Once you get that, they have a really, really strong advantage on water, where any real military engagement typically goes in their favor.
Yeah, and that Admiralty upgrade is often what decides the water fights. So for a player like LucifroN piloting the Shushi's Legacy, it's going to be so important for him to close out the game on water before that upgrade hits, because once it's through, it's permanently through for all your ships. And those ships, they're just so much stronger because now the micro becomes more easier for you. Your opponent's going to have to get closer, and it's ultimately just so much harder for them to play water.
Exactly. Something good that Kiljardi's doing right now. He's keeping a scout active on trying to hit LucifroN's villager next to the pond. Means that LucifroN might have to pull an additional villager in order to get a second dock up. Looks so like he pulled his own scout over, so scout from Kiljardi is going to have to move back. Can we take a look at the meditation garden here from LucifroN? Just see how many resources exactly are going to be in range of that. I see berries, I see gold, I see stone. Overall, not the best, but definitely not the worst one as well. I feel like if he moved it a little bit further, he could have gotten 2 berry spots and still stone and gold in there as well.
Yeah, it's about a 7 out of 14. This is about as mid-tier as you can get as a meditation
That could have
garden.
been a great one.
That could have been amazing. Getting so many resources there from the middle, and that's just what we see with this Holy Island, is on this map, you have a lot of resources on the land going for you. And if you look to play for a more land-heavy style, where you might not have water, you're actually going to be all right if you can manage to do so. That's the same here in the early game with the Meditation Garden. If you can manage to place that out far enough without sacrificing too much of your timing, then all of a sudden you have a greater income. Now we see
Jobs have come in. Kings and Q.
A little bit of a
And horsemen. All right. That's very similar to what we've seen earlier with Puppy Paw as well.
Yeah, so that early horseman opening is certainly something we'll see that can either chase away longbows or the king in this case. See some early galley gameplay here. They're trying to push against the fishing boats here, which is kind of a crucial timing here. Getting a sprinkle ship out right after to potentially take out your opponent's galley, but in the end, you're just trying to get some early damage done on the fishing boats, potentially lowering your opponent's food income.
Production still up there. Kiljardi doesn't have too many villagers in gold, which means that he's not exactly rushing the Admiralty upgrade right now. He's added in his own archery range, so longbows are going to be out on the field. King and longbows versus horsemen. The horsemen, in theory, should be doing quite well against the longbows there. Looks like Kiljardi also stopped making them.
You have to think about the Admiralty upgrade. It's quite an expensive one, about 500 resources. So if you go for it that early, you are going to be losing out on the water. And that means that you'd have to either find enough value with your king or potentially compromising the amount of ships that you have. And if LucifroN pays attention to something like that, which he will, then you are in a situation where you're going to lose water.
Yeah. Kiljardi now moving ahead with his own demo ship as well. The demo ship is weak, could at this point in time also just get picked off by the sprinkle ship, so probably best in his interest to just go back for the time being, heal that one up again. In the meantime, he's even making a barracks now. We're seeing some Spearmen coming out as well behind us. So LucifroN, he's got the eco advantage. He's got a couple more fishing ships out at this point in time, like quite a few more.
And it's a substantial eco lead, and if he can also control water at the same time, this might snowball for him. Kiljardi's also producing longbows and spearmen at the same time, looking to pressure more on the land front, and this could be quite scary for Lucy, but he has to have the counter option as well through the Shugenus and the Horsemen.
Oof. Yeah, Jugunu and Horseman, that's quite the composition here. And we're once again like seeing this theme of both players like heavily leaning into their military on land as well. Demo ship is gonna get a good connection there. Both ships take a lot of damage, and a lot of the fishing ships go down there as well. That's gonna be a really, really rough run now for Kiljardi to hold this. 5 economy units down so far, having just lost a couple more ships, but is going to be able to force LucifroN back for the time being. But once again, this is very similar to what we see the last time around with LucifroN. A lot of demo ships coming out from him. They're really making use of the taxation, not just with the Chinese, but with Shuji's legacy as well.
I think this is also a crucial moment to highlight that with such a good attack initially from the on the naval front, getting into full demo here might be what he needs to close this out early, since Kiljardi's running, what is it, 1 galley and then 4 Springles from 2 demos himself. He's going to be active on the micro front here because he's about to be pushed with so many demos.
Oh, demo ships from 2 different sides. Oh, they're all getting connections. Oh, that might be a quick one. It might be a quick one. Suddenly the entire water economy is just gone. What fishing ships? I don't see any. A small land military is making its way across, but LucifroN already has like almost 10 Jugunu out.
He's got 10 Shigunu out, and he's got water as well, so he's going to have that extra food leverage from the fishing boat should he fully
Oh, is this going to be another connection?
Almost.
Nah, just get it. Gets it in time. At the same time, good connection from Kiljardi. Yeah, able to do a lot of damage there on those ships. But yeah, the military on land, it's getting eaten up alive. Yeah, Spearmen getting caught on the retreat with the longbows. Might turn around, get at least a couple of pokes out there. But yeah, Jugunu definitely going to be able to deal with that now. Kiljardi's got a lot of resource in the bank. Had enough potentially for Admiralty, but does have to reinvest into some demo ships. But no arch ships means that no way to defend against that. And great connections coming in there once again. And Kiljardi, that water's already gone.
It's way too early in this game if he's looking to switch into land, because right now, if he loses all the water access and LucifroN takes it 10 minutes into the game, this game's potentially already over, because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Build second TCs? Go castle? There's so many resources you require to do something like that. He can look to try to do something with the demos here, and he might actually find connections, able to spread his demos out a little bit, and that might be what he needs to retake water here. But you got to remember, at the top side of his base, there's still this looming threat of the Shugenus. He lost his main army on land, and so now, even though he might take water, he's still compromised on land.
Yeah, 7 economic units behind right now. Does have a couple of fishing ships remaining on shoreline fish, though, so not even getting that most efficient economy in right now. No more ships in queue as well at this point in time, so water looks like it's fully given up at this point in time for Kiljardi. No villagers on stone as well, and that's it. GG gets called. 2-0 on the board now for LucifroN, putting himself at match point.
Such a fast game, and it just goes to show you how quick these games can end when you have the water control. You're able to get extra food, and you're able to get that military lead as well. We can just see it on the economy count here. None of these players actually lost that many villagers, but again, we have to think water is just, it's where it is early on. Had this all unfolded 5-10 minutes later on in the game, I would say Kiljardi was going to be in a lot better position to retake land and just go full land mode. But that was not the case here. It's simply too early on.
Yeah, I agree. Just losing that many fishing ships early on, as well as the military ships, just some great demo connections coming in there. And that just, overall, yeah, winning LucifroN game number 2 there.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, English ain't coming together in this one, boys. Oh, that's just brutal. English meant to be OP, but Kiljardi not able to show it here. Has a worrisome and fast-looking series on our hands, boys. I mean, we really got to kind of hunker down this because Marine Lord kind of put him underneath the magnifying glass yesterday, Voldemort. I think, to quote Marine Lord, Kiljardi is really bad at water. There was already some questions coming in from people in the chat, like, why even go Holy Island when you're up against LucifroN? I guess the mentality that Kiljardi is trying to take here is you have to play it at some point, so you might as well get out of the way now.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I think it's also a question of you have to play water, and the question is, are you going to play Kabasan? Are you going to play Holy Island? Are you going to play Golden Heights? You're forced to it, and so his best bet might be to pick something like English, which has shown to be his favorite civilization on Holy Island. He had a shot, but ultimately he was outgunned by LucifroN's Shushi's Legacy on the waterfront, and that stole the game there for him. We are going to head into Dry Arabia now, though.
We are, but I don't know, man. So far in this series, Crackety, Kiljardi kind of followed his script. We'd seen an Ottoman pick, we'd seen an English pick on water. I feel surprised that LucifroN's the one that gets shown, because I feel like Kiljardi's been the one trying to convince us the most that this civ is viable.
Yeah, not just Kiljardi. I think like when I think of Jean at the moment, the usual suspects that I think of are like CISO and Louis. When I think of Jean, Kiljardi's also definitely up there. Like he enjoys making like 2, 3, 4, 5 knights, and after that adding just a couple, like maybe 50, 60 archers in order to top it all off. And that's kind of been his Jean style. LucifroN's Jean style, I think, is way more mass knights, way more like in the range of like CISO and Louis department, where the main focus is on the knights and not on the archers.
But the good news is, Kiljardi likes to play aggressive civs, right, Voldemar? And in fairness, although Roos can be a boomy civ, we've seen they're very capable of these relentless one-in-all-TC type approaches. I guess the question mark on my mind is, is this a matchup where Kiljardi can be that aggressor that we know he loves and feels comfortable being? Or having it be Zhone, do you have to accept you're playing turtle mode here?
It's a good question again. The Roos have so much versatility, so you can take it into multiple directions if you'd like. You can go for the second TC, but you could also try to force that one TC gameplay. You have knights, and those can be incredibly powerful in the early stages of the game, should he get them out quickly enough. Jean, not with that fast of a knight timing compared to French. And so there might be some small timing that he can try to exploit there in the early game. But I think if he chooses to play the long feudal, it's rough for him.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, right now, I think Joan is still sticking with a low win rate. She's doing a little bit better than French, right? Joan has I think, 40% win rate now, so 4 wins, 6 losses. Meanwhile, French continues to not work at all. Oh, sorry, down to 20 now. French still infinitely worse, though, at 0%. But looks like we're about ready to get into game here. LucifroN versus Kiljardi. This could be the final game for Kiljardi here in Red Bull Wololo El Reinado. A brutal way to go out if it comes down to that. But when all else fails, when your back is up against the wall, why not build the most powerful walls of all? It's time for the Roos.
All right, and here we go. Classic, good old classic Dry Arabia now. Jeanne d'Arc versus Roos. Kind of like a typical. It feels like whenever the DLC launched, like this is what you would see on ladder.
Yeah, for sure. Roos always being a staple pick is such a powerful civilization, both for tournament and ladder play. I think Jeanne can have its niche when it comes to the tournament side of things. Roos certainly being a more, what would you say, counter pick here to Jeanne, and I think that could end up being where Kiljardi could potentially snatch a win here. It's going to be tough, though, because LucifroN is not somebody you just take a win from.
It's going to be a tough one. I mean, LucifroN with Jeanne d'Arc, it's like one of these things that just go together so nicely. Like LucifroN French and LucifroN Jeanne d'Arc, those things just really work nicely together. And Kiljardi and Roos, that's also something that I want to say, like, is a classic. Like, when I played a lot of ladder versus Kiljardi, more often than not, did I just see him play the Roos day in, day out. It's kind of like been like Roos 2TC into just mass aggression, mass Knight, mass archers. I wonder how well that's gonna work out. Now, Jean, we know her as like being like a very aggressive civilization typically. Doesn't shy away necessarily from 2TC, but ideally it wants to like be 1TC, gets at level 3 Jean, and then just take beneficial fights. It's gonna be tough to do that against the Roos. Well, like when the DLC launched, like Roos was hailed as like one of the best civilizations to pick against JD because you have that defensive landmark with the Kremlin. So you're not really getting forced into taking early fights and giving over experience to her.
Absolutely, and you are, however, going to give a lot of experience should you decide to play that feudal age with knights and so on, because they do give out more experience than just your standard wood units. So what's really going to be the difficult point here is Kiljardi, does he go for the second TC and walls up? Then he's going to be in for a pretty tough situation where LucifroN could possibly try to go for an all-in. But LucifroN is also no stranger to playing the mid game and late game, and so it's really, really difficult to see where Kiljardi can take this, provided that the feudal age is not optimal for him, where he usually shines.
I'm not a fan of this Kremlin position. Just literally go on the other side of the wood line, and you're getting so much more value out of that one. You get a deer spot, you get gold, you get stone. You also still get the wood line there, and I mean, sure, it's like a little bit more travel time, but like barely. That would have been such a good Kremlin spot there. That could hurt him there in the long term.
Yeah, it's again a question of how you're going to play it out afterwards. If you put the Kremlin in the front, that can be like a nice, safe point to attack or defend from. But if you decide to put it on the left side, you leave your main base open for raids. So perhaps he wants to try to wall that left side, since there is pretty easy spaces to do that.
Still feels potentially pretty rough. In the meantime, let's see. LucifroN doesn't look yet like he's sending any villagers over to Stone. So I'm not sure if he wants to immediately go for like a second TC. He has 3 villagers on that, John included, which is going to net him a very similar age up timing to like the French, like a 4 minute and 10 seconds. So just slightly later, but still good age up, and definitely is going to provide John with enough experience there early on. Not quite to be able to like level up immediately, but pretty much get her there. Just gonna like need to gather for like 20 more seconds or something like that.
We see Kiljardi going here for the early stone instead of going for both wood and stone at the same time, so he knows that his stone is vulnerable. He's trying to get around this by collecting the stone before the knight could actually get to his base, which I think is actually kind of a smart move here. But again, you're going to be later on your second TC, and if you want to place that out on the map, then you're going to have to deal with the knights anyways.
I actually really like this, going to the stone really early, because you can never forget that you're not getting that 20% bonus wood income until the Kremlin's actually completed. So getting the stone out first is a little bit more of an efficient way of doing it. I don't think he's going to be able to go for a TC far out anyways, just considering with how the Kremlin is positioned, right? And when the knights come in early like that, chances are you can't really afford to go for a second TC on something like the deer. And now the second TC is going to be coming in for LucifroN villagers, moving on to the stone for him.
I really, really like this play. He still has Jean that he can level up. I'm going to be curious to see where he's going to take this, because he knows that his opponent's going to go for a second town center, himself going for that too. And if we're going to get into this late game type of style, we might actually see Archer Jean here.
That could be coming in. I think Archerton in general is very good when you're playing against cavalry civilizations, just because like having the focused single fire ability just gives you so much more value. And there it is. Hunter version of Jean is coming in compared to like the AoE damage version.
Yeah, and Archer Jean just so great in that late game, because when we start to get into the siege play, she has this tremendous power to go out and use her her arrow to actually just one-shot the siege units. And that's so powerful.
Yeah, 100%. Divine Arrow in the late game just becomes very devastating when you're able to like one-shot Springles, one-shot Mangonels, and your opponent's probably not going to have as much of a fun time. You're also going to struggle with taking her down just because she gets so much damage reduction as well, to range damage as well at that point in time. So far, Kiljardi has a good villager lead. because LucifroN did invest into the second scout. That second scout kind of paid off, though, for the most part, I want to say. Kiljardi only at 135 bounty. There are still a couple of wolves alive, granted, though, but not enough to get him to that 250 bounty mark. Would probably have to go for some wolves, and Knight at the right spot at the right time is going to be able to pick off a villager there.
Absolutely on point there with the bounty. 135 bounty is not very much, and he's gonna be using the boars potentially to get up. But the thing is, when you're against Jeanne, naturally she's gonna go for those as well, considering she gets experience from them. So when you get into the late game, you're gonna rely on your hunting cabins and your high trade house to get the bounty you need. And there's just such a long road when you're only getting one deer at a time.
Yeah. Right now, knights for both players. I like the ability of making knights against Joan at this point in time, just because, like, if you ever catch her out of position, it's very easy to take her down in those situations. Meanwhile, if you're just making horsemen, the knights have a great chance of just body blocking and making sure that you can't really take her down, which is why knights in this situation are just so much better. Knight from LucifroN still remaining, wants to make sure that Kiljardi can't get much more gold now at this point in time. Charge gets cancelled. Point blank charge. Goes onto the knight though. Oh, and now Joan comes around there as well. Kiljardi not with enough gold right now in order to get more knights in queue. Villager goes down. That's going to be another villager, I think, that goes down. It's already 3 villager kills. 4 villager kills.
Absolutely
Kiljardi
devastating
needs
here.
units. Yeah, I think at this point, like, you would have legitimately been better off just getting horsemen out in order to get rid of Jean. She's gonna go down now sooner rather than later, but still, that's a lot of damage that Kiljardi just took. Still has a villager lead though.
Still got a villager lead, got that second TC up a lot quicker, but LucifroN getting those 4 villager kills here. He's gonna lose Jeanne here. That is a pretty big deal, because it's 250 gold to get her back. He immediately bought her back as well, so that is actually quite expensive. I'm not quite sure that really levels things out, but we have to just look at the numbers. Kiljardi is still ahead on villagers, and LucifroN had to, unfortunately, buy her back.
Yeah, I mean, that's 250 gold, right? That's quite expensive there. Oh, body block. Very nice. Able to get the knight there as well. Good trades now for Kiljardi. I think that might actually, like, shift things slightly into his favor again. Good that he does still have that villager lead. Otherwise, this would have definitely been a lot worse for him. But just having that villager lead just kind of makes it seem all okay for him.
Yeah, as long as he keeps the villager lead, he's going to be absolutely fine, provided he doesn't take too much idle time. The real deal here is who's going to take care of the mid game here. Is LucifroN going to get up before Kiljardi? I'm not quite sure. Kiljardi's going to have to secure his gold first, but LucifroN is also sitting on his deer. And Kiljardi, whilst he has a really secure base, looking at LucifroN's is more open, so Kiljardi can technically go in and try to play Feudal, but it's not ideal against Jeanne.
You don't want to take those extended feudal age fights against there. You need the crossbows at one point in time, because if you just rely on your knights and your archers, eventually Jeanne, she's going to go to level 3, and that's when she starts to really, really hurt your knights with the Divine Arrow. Another villager pickoff. No textiles yet for Kiljardi. Definitely would have paid off here in this game to get textiles.
Textiles, once you've started to lose a couple of vills and you're up against a player like LucifroN, it's just about getting it as quickly as possible, because it's not going to stop. Look at this knight coming in again. It's going to be able to two-shot this villager, and this is just so much value to get out of these knights. More knights coming in, more damage as well. Look at that. Kiljardi bringing up the shivs as well, trying to body block the knights, but ultimately he's got 9 villager kills now, and now they're evened out.
Yeah, and more than even now. Now LucifroN has taken the lead. So many villagers just went down. 11 villagers already killed. Militia has been called again. Healing comes in from Jean. Jean will go down once again. Is she going to take another villager with her? Not now. And the Knights from Kiljardi, a little bit out of position. They're now trying to find some damage as well, but all the economy is shifted to the left-hand side, not the right-hand side.
Another knight coming onto this palisade wall. This is so scary, man. Looking at the knights coming in from Kiljardi, he's going to have to find his own damage, because 12 villagers, that is insane. 41 to 46 could potentially have been up to 54.
Yeah, and it's so many villagers so far that have already gone down. Kiljardi now expanding onto that 4. He's gonna get himself some economy there. And villagers shifting over to the deer. LucifroN hasn't seen that quite yet. Oh my god, he's gonna get away with it. That is just hovering at the edge there of the line of sight. And LucifroN, he's got so many knights now though. So many knights on the field.
Little night charge did come in on the woodline here for Kiljardi onto LucifroN. So he did take one villager kill, but it's so scary with those LucifroN knights on the deer. LucifroN now going for another attack around the back here and another skirmish on the top right. Kiljardi's doing a good job getting out on the map, getting boar and deer, but look, Jean now finding the deer villagers on the left side of the woodline.
Oh, yep, does find them. No divine arrow coming out there though, and more villagers getting killed once again. Kiljardi just bleeding villagers everywhere right now.
There's a big mistake here in the defense, a big flaw, which might be that gold. Sure, it's in the back, but you don't have it secured by either a TC or Kremlin. And
Yeah.
it's such a big problem here when you don't have a tower, because it's constant idle time and constant villager losses. 15 villages at this point. I mean, 54 villas to 44. You're not going to catch up to that unless you're adding a third TC. So we're essentially just seeing a repeat of the first game.
Yeah, I mean, Kiljardi, he's kind of like trying to respect the knights by making spearmen, but he just can't make enough. He can't have them all at the same spot. Another villager is going to go down here that wanted to make the walls, so another villager is going to have to move all the way out there, and it's just these walls not coming in time. Like, sure, units are nice in order to defend, but sometimes they're just not quick enough, and LucifroN with his godlike micro just making sure to always stay just high off the range of these spearmen and still get a lot of damage in on those villagers. So many villagers have already lost their life here this game. 16 villagers just to those knights.
That's what we talk about when we talk about LucifroN mechanics. He's just able to find so much value in each individual unit. He micros them so well and finds villages left and right. And if you're up against a player like that as Kiljardi, you just have to be over-investing into the defenses because you know that there's a push coming. Guildhall now coming around on the back of LucifroN here, and that's again another really good landmark that's going to provide him with an opportunity to get extra resources. So this economy for LucifroN with those extra knights getting healed, his scalability is so strong.
Yeah. It is. A couple of farms have already been added now by Kiljardi. I like how LucifroN, like, he moved out onto the deer and just walled those deer in as well. Just making sure that he's going to be absolutely safe from any of these raids. Castle Age has come in now. Veterancy upgrades on their way as well. And he's just absolutely primed right now when it comes to being able to take these engagements. Jean is halfway to level 3.
Yeah, as Jean, once you are playing 2TC, it's usually really hard to find that experience to go for level 3. But LucifroN has found too many villas to really say anything here. Like it's just such a good position to find yourself in when you have enough experience to take one more fight, and then you're good to go. That's your timing, essentially. Good raid coming in here from Kiljardi onto the berry line of LucifroN, but as well on the other side, Escalation Knights up against Spears? I don't think that's really a good trade for Kiljardi.
At least they're able to get a couple of villager pick-offs here. There are some villagers on the berries as well. LucifroN's not paying too much attention. Oh no, the knights, they're actually ignoring the villagers on the berries. Now going onto the wood line. Might still do some good damage there. Spearmen getting outnumbered and also targeting the enemy spearmen for the most part there. Yeah, the knights just win this so easily now with the veterancy in. Castle Age Knights built different in this regard.
So now the villagers have actually leveled out now. We are 60 versus 59, so there's actually good damage coming out from Kiljardi, but again, Kiljardi lost his military.
Yeah, and he can't go up behind this. So overall, trade out still in favor of LucifroN.
Such an important trade out, because you might say that the villagers matter a lot, and sure they do, but when we're talking about being in Castle Age versus being in Feudal Age, if you don't have any units versus a Castle Age opponent, and you're not going to get up anytime soon either, first off, you're not going to get up anytime soon. Secondly, when you do get up, you don't have anything to upgrade, which means now you have to invest even more into units.
Yeah. More villagers get taken down there. Absolutely equal now on villagers, but yeah, Kiljardi, he just can't go up. He can't go to Castle Age behind this. He just doesn't have the resource for it. The Knights, LucifroN, he just keeps them running around. They're going to regenerate back to full HP. There's nothing Kiljardi can really do about that right now. And behind that, the Guildhall is also starting to collect resources. Jean also getting very close now to level 3.
And that's when that timing comes around. Kiljardi, if he stops making units at this stage of the game, that timing is going to be pretty free for LucifroN because there's not going to be any defense. And once Jean gets to level 3, having that Divine Arrow versus Knights, I mean, you're almost going to do full damage to them.
Yeah. And now another dive onto that outpost. Villagers do jump inside, but now the Knights mostly healed up again. Jean has to stay on the sidelines, doesn't want to get focused down by that outpost, but there's no military that can really stop this right now. Kiljardi's going to try. He's calling a couple of militia once again. But this time the outpost is going to go down. Villagers inside. Nowhere to call home, and level 3 comes in. Jean now with level 3.
This is such a crucial timing for him.
The champions absolutely demolishing the spears. Divine Arrow doing so much damage now to the Knights as well. And there's no way out. This is going to be a clean sweep by LucifroN. Already on match point now, Kiljardi. No military left in the tank. Castle Age still so far away. He's trying to work towards it, but now has no military left. And GG comes in just a couple seconds later. LucifroN, with the 3-0, is going to keep on in the losers bracket.
It's a rough set for Kiljardi here, and this last game here just showed it's not necessarily a matter of matchups anymore. We're talking a matter of skill. Once we get into a situation where LucifroN is able to raise so much against the Rus, it's going to be really tough to get out of that. And we saw how he was able to get to Castle. Kiljardi had to stay in Feudal and couldn't get to Castle himself, and that just means that once these snowball effects start happening, where you've lost villagers for a long amount of time, even if you do get it to do some damage later on, it doesn't matter because the damage has already been done.
Yeah.
Such
Looking at the overall resource as well, yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking back at that, boys. You know, like it's in some ways it's Kiljardi getting a dose of his own medicine, right? Because I'd say the way I describe this entire series, Crackety, is that Kiljardi really didn't get to make a single move. It felt like LucifroN pretty much kept him on a leash every single one of these games.
It's mainly, I want to say that Kiljardi, in many situations, right? Like, he very much is stepping into the shoes of Vortex when it comes to the playstyle, I believe. And who better at dealing with that than LucifroN?
Yeah, we can see that you're definitely a big LucifroN fan, just so in awe of his micro that you couldn't even move your face. Yeah,
I fixed it. I don't realize it for a second. It's so weird. Okay, there we go. It's back again.
It's absolutely fantastic. But no, I think it's a pretty interesting situation, bro. Like, I think Kiljardi, we had high hopes, but I think he can be proud of this, right? He went really deep, Voldemar. You know, I know it's always that classic, anything but first is first place loser at best. But when you think about Kiljardi's trajectory, I think what we're still seeing here is a continued path upwards.
We're definitely seeing a player who's in such a high trajectory development road right now, or whatever you want to say. It's like we see him entering this stage of the bracket, and that's really, you know, where so few make it, and he is actually starting to get really high and climbing. And we saw it in King of the North, he made it to second place, and we see it here as well. He's getting into, what is it, top 8 now?
Yeah. It's it's top 6, right? So yeah, even better, which is incredible. I think that's actually a top placement for him outside of things like the King of the North LAN, but in terms of S tier tournaments, I think by far this is his best performance. So.